And we are back on the Young Turks. Richard Eskow with our special guest Sam Cedar here, and somewhere in virtual reality for the first segment joining us will be Cenk Uygur from via Skype from 30 Rock itself, where he and JR have taken over the NBC mega empire. Cenk, can you hear us?
Absolutely. I'm ready to rock this first segment. I feel good, man. This is an all-star team. You kidding me? Sam Cedar, Richard Eskow, Cenk Uygur all on the same show. It's almost too much.
I was going to say, Cenk, it's nice to see you on this end of Skype. You got a very nice place here.
Yeah, look at this. Oh, they even changed it. What the hell? Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
Well, I think Sam was.
I didn't even know that.
I think Sam was also saying the place here is very nice, which it is. You know, we call it home.
My first time in being in Young Turks HQ.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we're switching positions. Sam's normally in New York. I'm normally in L.A. We flip-flop. By the way, Sam, great job today on the Radigan show on MSNBC. Afterwards, everybody was talking, man. They were like, damn, Sam was strong. That was good stuff.
It was fun. And, you know, to talk about Beck is always a pleasure. I mean, that we're gonna talk a little bit more about the rally, the 828 Restoring Honor, whatever, to, I guess, America, theoretically, rally. And I was down there for about 4 hours. I have a bunch of clips. We're going to play 2 of them tonight, and I'm going to put more up when I get back to New York. It was really something a little bit scary, but also endlessly entertaining.
And I know before we get into that, which we may do in the second segment, that Cenk, you really wanted to talk about a couple things, including the mosque situation and Sarah Palin and a couple other things. So you got something you want to kick us off with?
Yeah, definitely. I'd like to do a couple things with you guys before I take off for today. First up, we've got the mosque nonsense spreading. We've got a mosque in Tennessee that was burned. They apparently lit it with kerosene and then lit it on fire. And it's in, and I have trouble with this pronunciation of the town, so I'll just say somewhere in Tennessee.
Murfreesboro.
That's right, it's a Nashville suburb.
Tennessee is hallowed ground, though, right? I mean, isn't Tennessee hallowed ground?
It is.
Haven't we agreed upon that? Tennessee's hallowed ground?
And you know, it's so much so that in opposition to terrorism, they committed an act of terrorism.
Right.
That's what I call conscientious patriotism. Okay. So there's that.
Now, let me just give you a couple of quick details on that. There's 250 Muslim families, believe it or not, in that town. And then,
Cenk, are you with us? Okay.
Well, he froze. That happens. I've been on that end of the Skype. But, you know, I think more than anything, this proves that this notion that somehow this anti-community center protests and cries from conservatives and others, frankly, is really more a function of Islamophobia than it is a function of ground zero being hallowed ground. I mean, that lie has been laid to waste by the actual location of where the community center is, the fact that it's not in fact a mosque but a community center. You know, some people have said, and RJ, now maybe you've had this conversation, that, you know, to make the argument that it's not a mosque, to make the argument that it's not right adjacent to ground zero is to miss the point. Because the point is, even if it was a mosque, even if it was adjacent to ground zero, but I think telling people the reality of what the building is and where it's located, what the point of that is to show that this is a completely ginned up issue that the conservatives are using for electoral purposes, no different from the takeover of America by 3 Black Panther, members of the new Black Panther Party, or no difference than Shirley Sherrod. This is one in the same. It's just that Islamophobia is a little bit more comfortable for people to embrace.
Well, and yeah, that's absolutely right. And I think there's an intersection of 2 issues here. One is obviously the civil rights issue. Even if it were a mosque, you either do or don't don't support the civil rights of people to practice their religion where they want. So if you're Howard Dean and you say, why don't you compromise and move to Midtown, my counter argument would be, would you ask Rosa Parks to sit in the middle of the bus out of sensitivity for older whites who just aren't used to this yet? Because we did have that argument.
Right.
So there's the civil rights piece of it, and then there's the ginned up piece of it, which you mentioned, which is it's just feeding on fear, it's feeding on hatred, and the inevitable result of that is going to be a mosque burning down or a taxi. We don't know that the taxi driver whose throat was cut was connected with this, but other acts of violence seem almost inevitable. And when I've said this before, I said it about Sean Hannity with the shooting of the Unitarians in Knoxville, and he got outraged about that and demanded my firing by Ariana Huffington, which can't be done until she actually pays me, as I understand.
Right. That's the one benefit of getting no money for a
correct.
job.
I tend to make the most of it. That when you drum up hatred like this for political purposes, you can't act surprised when acts of hatred follow.
Right, and frankly, it's not just a matter of whether this has spurned other anti-Muslim sentiment, which of course it has, but what it also does is it poisons our domestic politics in such a way that we can't make good foreign policy decisions because of this. I mean, without this anti-Muslim sentiment, that it's harder to attack Iran, let's say, or it's harder to maintain troops, even I think in the Middle East. So
right, to get to diplomatic agreements.
There's also like a secondary fallout from it as well.
Absolutely, and I think we have Cenk back now. Is that right? And Cenk, I think you were going to make the point also about a statement the Taliban apparently made today.
Yes, I want to get to that. Sam's is a perfect lead into that, but I just wanted to complete the Tennessee story a little bit when I dropped off, because there's some amazing quotes from it. And I want everybody to be clear, the mosque had not been built yet. They're trying to build this mosque, and they burned the construction equipment
I see.
that was there. And it's arson. And opponents of that new Islamic Center in Tennessee said that, look, it's 15 acres, and we were worried that instead of that the mosque was going to be a militant training ground for Muslims to take over America. And he said, Bob Shelton, one of the guys, activists there, told the Associated Press, quote, they're not a religion, they're a political militaristic group, referring to Islam, all of Islam, not the particular people in Tennessee. And then he also said, no Sharia law for USA. And he says he's against the Islamic code here. There was a prayer vigil where a very misled woman, Evie Summers, said, no mosque in Murfreesboro. I don't want it. I don't want them here. Go start their own country overseas somewhere. This is a Christian country. It was based on Christianity. Now, she's up, she couldn't possibly be more wrong historically and constitutionally. But what I find interesting and actually a little comical was the first set of comments, and it related to what you guys were talking about, that these people, they've got them so riled up that they're actually worried that Sharia law is going to take over the United States. Really? On which frickin' planet?
There have also been right-wingers who have actually been saying that there are counties or districts within the United States where Sharia law is being imposed, but they haven't told us which ones yet.
Well, of course, you've got to keep it secret.
Of course, that's part of the
If you start to advertise where Sharia's law is taking place, then obviously it will. I'm not sure what happens at that point, but you've got to keep it secret.
The first rule of Sharia law is you don't talk about Sharia law.
That's right, exactly. It also happens to be the last one. I mean, a woman I encountered at the Glenn Beck rally, there was a tremendous amount of anti-Muslim sentiment there, and she was telling me about. She was telling me she's reading a book about secret installations of Muslims in America, and she's telling me there's Islamabad, which is a compound up in the Catskills. And
it's where Grossingers used to be.
Ostensibly near the Nevele. But
there's an Islam burger?
Islamberg in the Catskills. Now, there very well may be Islamberg in the Catskills. But I got news for you. In the Catskills, there's all sorts of compounds. There are Jewish compounds up there. There's communes. And I said, why are you fixating on this? How many people could actually be in this compound? We don't know. It's secret. well, is it
secret.
100? Is it 200? You think there's 5,000? And she's like, there are people who are leaving there and flying to Pakistan. Really? That's shocking. And then she follows up with, look, I just came from the Holocaust Museum here. And it talked about how fascists can grow and take over a country. And I said, well, you know, some people would go to the Holocaust Museum and walk away with the idea of how dangerous it is to vilify and demonize religious organizations and start saying they're a secret society. That's exactly what happened to the Jews. And so, you know, this notion, there is, at the heart of it, is this bigotry that is an easy thing to sell.
Absolutely.
Because, you know, where is the natural constituency that's going to stick up for Muslims?
In the 1930s, it was Catholics and Father
Right.
Coughlin. And I think the progressive movement in general does itself, and then we'll have to go to break, but the progressive movement in general does itself a huge disservice by underestimating the impact all this can have on society. Maybe we can talk about that a little more when we see your videos. But we need to go, I think, to a break pretty quickly. Cenk, do you have anything you want to add on this topic?
Yeah. I just wanted to give you the quotes. First of all, just real quick, the idea that a guy who rejected Islam, a couple of guys who are Jewish or half Jewish, all of us who are agnostic, that we would be in favor of Sharia law is so absurd. Oh, nobody wants Sharia law in the U.S., least of all liberals. But that's not what's happening. They're freaking mental. But here, now more importantly, look, Newsweek had this great story about the Taliban. They actually went and talked to a source that they have there by the name of Zabihullah, and he had some amazing quotes. He said about the controversy over the mosque in Manhattan, he said, quote, by preventing this mosque from being built, America is doing us a favor, referring to the Taliban, etc. And he went on to say that this is helping for him to rally more people to his jihadist cause. And he says, because it adds to their rage. Here's another quote from him. He said, we talk about how America tortures with waterboarding, about the cruel confinement of Muslims in wire cages in Guantanamo, about the killing of innocent women and children in air attacks. And now America gives us another gift with its street protests to prevent a mosque from being built in New York. The conservatives, according to one of the leaders of the Taliban, are giving them an absolute gift. And he says it'll help them recruit more people like the guy who tried to do the bombing in Times Square. And finally, he has this quote, the more mosques you stop, the more jihadis we will get.
Which is,
it is helping their recruiting. It's a terrible idea brought to you by our right wing and enjoyed by their right wing.
and it's still not a mosque, even if the Taliban says it. But thank you so much, Cenk. Great stuff. Very important to know. I think it's probably time to go to a break. Cenk, are we going to have you when we come back? We're going to be flying solo, I think.
No, you guys got it from here. God bless. Go forward.
You got to take a
great
break.
show.
Yeah.
You got to take a break, buddy.
All right.
Take care. We'll be right back on the Young Turks. And we are back on the Young Turks. Richard Eskow with special guest Sam Cedar here with some live video he shot at yesterday's Glenn Beck rally. Sam.
Right, not live, but
no,
it was.
well,
I
it was
was
live
live
at
at
the
the time when
time.
I
Right.
shot it. I
Correct.
went down to the rally. I got there at about 9:30 in the morning, and I will say this: Beck said, "Bring no signs," and I saw virtually zero signs. The only signs I saw, and I haven't posted this video yet, were literally two guys holding a sign, walking around with their friend who was black, posing for pictures with a sign, do we look racist? I mean, like it was shocking.
Wow.
There was about 4 or 5 black guys there, and they were rock stars, although one of them was selling a Don't Tread on Me flags. And I asked him, would you be here if you weren't selling these flags? And he was like, no. And so, and we're talking, by any estimates, either 80,000 or 160,000 people. But, it's a large amount of people. But it was essentially a lot of middle-aged people. And going down there, I expected it to be very Tea Party-ish, very political. A lot of people, weren't terribly forthcoming with me. And you get later into the conversation, they started to reveal a little bit more. But it wasn't as political as I had thought. It was much more about more God in our society. And RJ, this is Pat Buchanan back in 1992. This is the culture war. And I'm telling you, they receded after the 2006 election when guys like Santorum and a lot of the most crazy guys got voted out of office. But they are back, and Beck is their leader, and Sarah Palin is too. And just to give you a sense, I went around and I asked people, what does restoring honor mean to you? That was the sort of the ambiguous title of the event. And well, this woman here gives an explanation, and it just goes to show you that it is total jingoism on their part. The depth of their understanding of the issues that they're out there protesting is rather thin. Here's an example of that now. Let's roll that videotape.
Change in the government and a peaceful change. I want to see what Glenn Beck's initiative is. I think he's introducing something to do with pastors. And I love to see the camaraderie, the fellowship, everybody picking up trash as they go. Everybody's civil. There's no divisiveness as far as I'm concerned at this event.
And what does restoring honor mean to you?
Restoring honor, I guess, means trying to go back to live the actual Constitution. There doesn't need to be a separation of God and church. I think that a lot of our problems have to do with taking God out of the schools and, separating it all.
But from a constitutional standpoint, isn't there supposed to be separation of church and state?
Well, I need to take a Constitution class, I will admit that. I have signed up for one starting in October, so I can learn more. I don't admit to knowing everything about the Constitution, but I don't feel that our country is going in the direction that it was meant to. And I do not like the health care. I'd like to see that repealed.
Let me ask you about, because you're here, you feel like we've gotten away from the Constitution. What happens if you take that course about the Constitution and find out there's stuff in there you don't like?
Then I will, I don't know what I'll do. I really can't honestly say. My health care premiums are already for witches.
So we had to cut that conversation short because of the Pledge of Allegiance. But let's review what she said here. I don't admit to knowing everything in the Constitution. She knows nothing in the Constitution. Nothing. Zero. But she knows that we're not living, in her words, we're not living the actual Constitution.
Right, because, but what struck me about this was her comment about health care and not liking the health care because her premiums are going up.
Right,
yeah,
that's the point!
We can talk all we want to about, the irrationality and, all the wackiness of their arguments as arguments, but there's also, isn't there a communication failure here on the part of the Democrats, on the part of the progressive movement, that nobody's saying to this woman, hey, the reason your premiums are going up is not because of this health care bill.
I think, in general, I agree with your point, that there was not enough communicating about the benefits of the health care bill. I do think there were benefits to it. I don't know, frankly, I'm not sure I buy into that the premiums are going to go down with health care.
I don't either. And
so,
I worked in that field for
years. But I got news for you.
Either.
You could sit with a megaphone in this woman's living room, and you could announce over and over your health care premiums are going down. She will not hear you.
Right.
She will not hear you. She has gone to a protest, and the number one reason in her mind is because we're not living the actual Constitution, and we need to have more God in government. And then when just asked a very civil, well, how do you reconcile that with the idea of separationist? Well, I don't really know the Constitution, but I'm going to take a class on it. So she has traveled who knows how many miles to protest because the Constitution isn't followed, yet she scheduled her class after the protest.
This seemed from your video. It looked like a sort of old people Woodstock. That this was all about community and coming together. It's like Burning Man, for fundamentalists.
That's exactly what it was. And I'll tell you, the danger of something like that is that they go there and they say, look there's more people here than live in my town, which is very possible. The whole world must agree with me, and they're convinced. They're walking out of this protest going like, because they see I'm there with a microphone and a camera, and assume that my platform is probably larger than it is. But they're going like, tell the world everybody was here. Well, not really everybody. Actually, it was about 80,000 people. A good, Pac-10 football game will get this many people too, except for they at least know who the players are. They know, that that's an end zone and that's an end zone and what a touchdown is. They're not sitting there cheering, hit a home run at a football game. And that's what this lady's doing. She's sitting there protesting that we're not following or living the actual Constitution, and yet she admits in the next breath, I don't know anything about the actual Constitution. And you know what? It's not that big of a document.
No, it's not. And
get through it in probably in the train ride.
And there are breakdowns that make it very simple. I mean, you can read a simplified version.
They put it in sections.
They did. That was very thoughtful of them.
They number it and they put it in sections. The whole thing. So that and the reason why I chose that clip, I've got a lot more clips that ultimately that I'm going to start to upload. But that clip to me was the revelation that it was a little bit less political than I thought, and more about God. And when I said to people, implied in the title, restoring honor to America, I said, when did America lose her honor? When did you first notice it? And they almost every single one of them responded, which was a little bit of a surprise to me, over time. Which is an incredibly slippery thing.
Right.
That I got to give Beck his due. His messaging is so vague that anybody can project onto it. Some people said 1930 when we turned into a socialist country because of FDR. Some people said the 1960s when women became emancipated. Some people said when my kids were in school. And everybody had this notion that values were decaying, that gays have become normalized. This is the same moral majority that has always been there. These are not new voters.
Absolutely. There was a movement in the 30s, as I'm sure you know, called moral rearmament, MRA, and exactly the same thing, that we're not sectarian, we don't have a left or right point of view, we just want more God in people's lives, and we want people to come together around the notion of God. Now, they wound up getting very cozy with Hitler for a while, but these non-sectarian godly movements are scary.
This is a reaction to what's going. Different movements. Whether it's women's lib or gay rights or any type of social progress, they are reacting to. Not unlike the Ku Klux Klan was reacting to the emancipation of slaves. And of course, when you have that type of reaction, the first thing you do is grab the cross, and that's why you can see all type of cross iconography within the Ku Klux Klan. They put it on their hoods, they put it on their robes, they burn one, and so then. But you have this new mix to these people. There's a little extra little spice, and this woman is an example of that. The worldview, the conspiracies they've constructed. It really is impressive. I think you're going to enjoy this clip from this woman. Can I ask you one general question about today? When do you think America lost her honor?
A very long time ago, but just like me, I was sleeping. My life kept rolling on and I wasn't paying attention. And I didn't pay attention until 2 years ago. And now I think all of us are awake. I think we are truly a divided country. I think that both parties are corrupt. And I think we need to really, all of us, each of us, have a responsibility to ourselves, our children, and this country's future to pay attention.
What woke you up?
Reverend Wright, you can't make me or convince me that you can go to church with someone for 20 years and not share the same ideology. You can't convince me of that.
So you think Obama is a Christian?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Do you? No, I do not believe he is a Christian at all. I think that he has bowed down to the Muslim faith. I think he was raised as a child Muslim. And you know what? If he is Muslim, just be honest about it. I date a Muslim.
Wait, but why do you think he went to them? Why do you have a problem with him going to Reverend Wright's church?
Have you listened to some of Reverend Wright's words?
Well, you don't think he's actually listening because he's a Muslim.
Oh, come on.
I'm
I understand what you're saying, okay? He wanted people to believe that he was a Christian because he's going into the election year, okay? So he knew his future was politics. He was well set up from the day he went to college coming out, okay? So he had to put on that front. His past is clearly Muslim. How else could he have recited the beginning of the Islamic prayers? Christians don't memorize those things. You know what I'm saying?
Well, to be fair, I know some Christians who know some Jewish prayers.
I will agree with you there. Okay, that is true. That is true.
So now if this is where I want to have Glenn Beck's chalkboard, right? Because we have to work this out. How can you go to church with someone for 20 years and not share their ideology?
Sam, she told you.
So she's a Christian.
She told you he was under deep cover since he was.
But she started with the premise that if you go in there for 20 years,
you have to share the
you're
ideology.
sharing the ideology. She says that.
Well,
but then she says, but in fact, he doesn't share the ideology because he's a secret Muslim.
Well, so is Jeremiah Wright then, obviously.
So Jeremiah Wright is a secret Muslim who was planted there 25 or 35 years ago because the secret Muslim society knew that Obama, when he graduated from Harvard, would have to go to a Christian church, but didn't want him to go to a real Christian church led by a real Christian pastor. So what they did
would be
is
too easy.
They inserted a secret Muslim into the leadership of the church so that Obama could go and sit there for 20 years, listen to the secret Muslim acting as a Christian, both absorb the Muslim ideology under the guise of absorbing a Christian ideology, and then, of course, obviously, that's what woke her up.
You know how clever they are? Glenn Beck accused Obama of following liberation theology, and of course, liberation theology is Christian, not Muslim. So even their own leader is in on it. You know, they're playing a deeper game than you or I can understand.
Right. If
That's
you take the words
important
liberation theology, and you were to say them on a record, and you were to play the record backwards, it would actually say Obama's a secret Muslim, and he's actually, the whole liberation theology is really just about Muslim.
In the voice of Ozzy Osbourne.
Exactly. Or isn't it? It's Paul McCartney, I think.
He's dead. No. So, okay, we're about to
McCartney?
go to a break, and when we come back, this is great stuff, Sam. Thank you so much. I really, I can't say I enjoyed it. I mean, enjoying would be kind of the wrong message that I would be communicating to you, but I think
I've got so much. I've got 4 hours of this stuff.
Yeah, well, I'm obsessive enough to watch it all, believe me. So this is great. So we're going to be back in a few minutes with Ashley Carson of the Older Women's League, who is the recipient of an email from Alan Simpson, who we've just been told again today will stay on as co-chair of the Deficit Commission targeting Social Security.
The so-called cat food
They call it
commission.
the Cat Food Commission, but not the fancy kind I get for my cat, the fancy feast grilled.
Right, no,
nothing
this
that
is,
fancy.
dried cat food.
This is dry. Okay, so we're going to go to a break, and when we come back, we will be talking to Ashley Carson. And we are back on the Young Turks. Richard Eskow sitting in for Cenk Uygur with special guest Sam Cedar. And we have a guest on the line, I believe, right now, Ashley Carson, the executive director of the Older Women's League, and the recipient of a most unusual email from Alan Simpson, co-chair of the Deficit Commission that has been taking an extreme, disproportionate level of interest in Social Security. Ashley, are you with us? Okay. Thank you so much for coming on the Young Turks. We're glad to have you, and we'll have a couple questions for you, but I want to start with this. No one has asked you this in a public place that I've seen so far. What was your reaction when you opened this email? When you go to your inbox, you see an email from Alan Simpson. You've made comments about his commission some 3-4 months before and about his deprecating remarks about Pink Panthers or something. What was your reaction when you first saw the email?
I was pretty shocked. It seemed quite unprofessional coming from someone who's been appointed by the President of the United States.
And what did it say? Most of our listeners will know, but what were a couple things that jumped out at you on that first read?
Well, there's, of course, the line about Social Security being a cow with 310 million blanks.
Right.
And
now,
which is very, you can right off the bat see how that one is offensive to not only women, but anyone, who has paid into Social Security. But there's a couple other parts of the email that were a subtler form of sexism.
Let's get to those in a second. I just want to explain for anyone listening who might not understand what Mr. Simpson said in that email was he said that he thought a lot of people were, quote unquote, milking the Social Security system, and then he said it was like a cow with 310 million organs that produce milk, and 310 million happens to be the population of the United States. So he was basically saying everybody is milking the Social Security system. So, and the word that he used, the 3-letter word for that organ, was
well, it was he should have used the word cow teat, which
yes.
of course is part of a cow's udder. But I mean, we get the idea here.
Right.
So, so tell us, what was the rest of the letter that he wrote to you?
Well, he referred me to a presentation by the chief actuary of Social Security, Stephen Goff, a presentation that had a chart that I was fairly familiar with in social, showing the projections of spending and what would be coming and going out in Social Security over the next, say, 100 years or so. And he said he attached that if I was any good at reading charts, which to me just sort of goes back to the whole, form of sexism that is girls aren't very good at math or science. And so that was kind of a more subtle attack, but I think it's offensive, and you shouldn't be sending something like that to someone who works on women's issues.
Well, you shouldn't be sending that. You shouldn't be saying that to anybody. I mean, this guy has been appointed to a presidential commission, ostensibly to take an objective look at what the charter specifically says that projected revenue, projected growth of entitlement programs as to its effects on the deficit. Here's a guy who's been appointed by the president who's writing these disparaging letters, whether they're offensive as to you as a woman or as simply as a person who's involved in public policy, to act so demeaning towards you. But let me ask you this. Wait, what was that? When was the last time you had contact with him? I mean, did he send this out of the blue?
Yeah, I've actually never contacted Mr. Simpson. I wrote a public blog on the Huffington Post back in April. I was talking about the fact that you keep hearing him in the media talking about advocacy groups, and he calls them the Gray Panthers, and misnamed the National Committee to Preserve Social Security and Medicare, called them some other made-up name, and then the Pink Panthers. And I was just pointing out in my blog that there's no group called the Pink Panthers. I think it's, I was basically just saying, enough with this. We don't need to call advocates Pink Panthers, because to me that's saying women's organizations are sort of this like fictional character that doesn't really exist. And
didn't he also, sorry Ashley, but didn't he also say to you, enough with this sexism and ageism crap, and write me when you get honest work, or something like that?
Yeah, he did say that, and I think that just shows a consistent pattern, because we know that during the hearings, the Thomas confirmation hearings back in the 90s, he basically told Anita Hill that she would be experiencing the real sexism or sex discrimination, not. Pardon me. She would be suffering from real discrimination from the claim she was bringing forth, not the sexual kind.
Right. I think what
kind
he
of
said,
insinuating that that's not real discrimination, and that's just his behavior. It shows a clear and consistent pattern. He's also been very disparaging to seniors in using the term greedy geezers all the time when referring to different older adults in this country.
Well, yeah, that's right. And I think what he actually said to Anita Hill was that if she persists in reporting this claim of sexual harassment, she was going to experience real harassment rather than sexual harassment,
right,
as if sexual harassment were real.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Well, I gotta say that to me, the most offensive thing about this letter is, I think that he clearly has a problem with women. He clearly has, but it seems to me, frankly, that he has a problem with everybody who is not in his tiny little circle. Because the most offensive thing that he's doing is, can you imagine for a moment if this was someone disparaging Gulf Oil or something? You'd hear the right wing screaming about how somebody's disparaging constituents. What's even worse than this, the fact that he's treating people who are advocating for what is due them with such bile and contempt, and doing so on the taxpayer dime as he sits on this commission, essentially. What's really offensive, too, is that he is supposed to be objectively looking at Social Security and its implications on the deficit, and he's clearly entering this committee with an agenda, and that agenda is, I think that people who take Social Security, I think that people who retire and don't have enough money to buy food or don't have enough money to pay for their heating bills, I think they're contemptible.
No, and let me add something to that, for both of you to comment on. The other piece of it is that this image of suckling on a teat is one of dependency, but he's addressing that remark to people who have paid into the system their entire life. So they are not drawing something from somebody else. They are asking to get back.
They paid premiums into a retirement insurance program.
Correct.
And they're getting their payoff.
So Ashley Carson was one of a number of women's leaders, as well as a broad spectrum of political leaders and politicians from a number of groups calling for Alan Simpson's resignation. We heard today again that the White House intends to keep him in his role. If we have time, we'll look at that video in a minute. But have you been contacted directly by the White House? Has there been any other response on this issue other than what's been reported in the media?
No, several of us who run women's organizations will be having a meeting, I believe, tomorrow with Bruce Reed, the executive director of the President's Fiscal Commission. And he's offered to come talk with us, which is a really nice gesture, and hopefully we'll learn about some of the things the commission is doing, which we definitely appreciate the opportunity to do. But I'd just like to make the point again that this was a blog post from, months ago. OWL has followed the procedure of, we did testify in front of the co-chairs of the Fiscal Commission. One of them was Mr. Simpson. So that's really the only direct contact I've had with the former senator. And
Ashley, can I ask you
it's just inappropriate behavior for somebody to be sending this type of correspondence to anyone, especially when they've been appointed by the president. And I'd also like to point out further that, there's been a number of situations where there's been discrimination, and the president has reacted in, appropriate ways to dismiss different people. And I think that what the women's movement would like to see is this form of discrimination taken a bit more seriously, and for him to reconsider his position.
Well, Ashley, let me ask you a question. You wrote this thing in April. Do you think Alan Simpson is keeping a list of people that have criticized him? Do you think he's keeping a list? That seems rather odd that this guy is responding 4 months later.
I don't know what to tell you on that point. I think I just find the behavior very strange, and I really firmly believe that he lacks the judgment that's necessary to be in this type of important position. We do need to look at our country's fiscal situation. And, you know, I don't think he's the man to co-chair the commission, illustrated by these types of actions.
Well, I think there's a lot of support for that point of view. And Ashley Carson, thank you so much for coming on the program today. And we will be following this story closely.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks again. And we have video, by the way. I think this could be interesting to take a look at very quickly of Robert Gibbs today answering the question a second time. It was answered by one of his assistants last week, talking about Alan Simpson's future as co-chair of the Deficit Commission, which I believe is clip number 4.
Does the President have any reaction to the renewed calls for Alan Simpson to be removed from the Deficit Commission based on the email that he sent to the President of the Hour, comparing America to a
Senator Simpson? Look, Senator Simpson sent an email that he's now apologized for. We regret that he sent that email. We don't condone those comments, but Senator Simpson has and will continue to serve on the commission.
See, now here's what I think is important about what just happened there. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but the questioner wasn't done. The questioner had just started a phrase that said, when Senator Simpson made a statement comparing America
to a milk cow. Right.
To a milk. Now, this reporter understood the statement that Simpson compared America and American citizens to people.
He called them
suckling,
teat suckers.
Yeah, all them
suckers.
300.
But he didn't use that word teat.
Correct. 310 million of them. You, me, everybody. So, and he cut him off. He did not want the question to continue.
This is why I have a little bit of a problem with the approach that the problem with this letter is that it's offensive. Because yes, it is offensive.
Right.
The problem with going to the White House and saying this man's offensive, the problem is that you can apologize for being offensive.
Right.
But
right.
you cannot apologize for being biased.
Correct.
You cannot apologize for entering into your job and being incapable of actually doing your job in a competent fashion because you have biases that do not allow you to objectively analyze the numbers. If you think that there is a program that is so contemptible, that you would so horrible that you would look upon those who are involved in it as these sucklings who are sucking the life force out of America in some way. How can you possibly objectively look at how it impacts the deficit? You're just going to hack away at it. You're going to slash it.
And that would also explain why a commission that was created to look at causes of the deficit has suddenly diverted all of its mental energy, apparently, and certainly a lot of its public rhetoric towards a program that doesn't contribute to the deficit because it's self-sustaining.
Not one dime.
Not one. There are only two possible explanations for why that would happen. One is this, that the United States government, with the encouragement of people like Senator Simpson, has borrowed $2.5 trillion from the Social Security Fund, and they don't want to pay for the wars, to pay for the Bush tax cuts, and they don't want to give the money back. That's reason number one. And reason number...
That would be the first default by America on its treasury bills.
Correct.
One of those IOUs in the history of this country.
But they don't want to characterize it as a default. So what they want to do is tar anybody who wants the money they put in to be there when they retire as somehow corrupt or evil.
I think that the takeaway from this is that whatever recommendations come out of that commission are already delegitimate. Before they come out with any recommendations, it is clear that the process has been so compromised that the way they've gone about this, with the way they've stacked this commission, with the way that the co-chair has clearly brought his own biases to what should be essentially a math question, that there is no recommendation that can come out of this committee, even if it's one that I agree with, that really has any credence or credibility, and the whole thing should be scrapped at this point.
And if you add into that the fact that the Democratic co-chair, the one that's supposed to be the more liberal side of the equation, Erskine Bowles, was the guy who cut a deal with Newt Gingrich to cut Social Security in the 1990s, which was only thwarted because of the Monica Lewinsky scandal. Then you really have a sense of a commission that's a stacked organization that no longer has any credibility. The best thing the president can do to salvage this is to A, get rid of Simpson, and B, say to this deficit commission, you're not looking at Social Security, you're looking at overall deficit issues, and we'll be happy to take a look at your recommendations.
I'm afraid that ship has sailed. I think the best thing he can do is say, there's 14 members on that commission. I'd like you each to write a report and send it in. And let's take a look at all 14 of you. It is clear as a commission the process has not worked. There's no way that we can look at the aggregate recommendations because you were compromised. That's it. Let's see all 14, and I think we're done.
And speaking of ships that have sailed, our ship has sailed because we are now at the end of an hour of the Young Turks. Sam Cedar, it was an absolute pleasure to work with you on this.
It was great to work with you as well.
And we will be tracking all of this. Yes. Thanks again.